President Obama made an amazing statement at the end of last week. And this statement is worthy of discussion. So the statement is that he did not have scandals as president. The coverage of scandals by the media is completely disproportionate between Republicans and Democrats. This is the real issue here. So President Obama, according to Newsweek, took a light swing at his successor during a tech conference in Las Vegas on Wednesday. He said his 8 years in office were scandal-free. He says, I didn't have scandals, which seems like it shouldn't be something you brag about. And then he said, actually, if you look at the history of the modern presidency, coming out of the modern presidency without anybody going to jail is really good. It's a big deal. He said, no one in my White House ever got in trouble for screwing up, as long as there wasn't malicious intent behind it. Okay, this, of course, is the point, right? You see him elide the point right there at the very end, right? He says, no one got in trouble because there was no malicious intent. Does that ring a few bells? Malicious intent? That was the excuse used by James Comey and the FBI not to prosecute Hillary Clinton for maliciously setting up a private server to hide her emails and putting 33,000 emails on there and then destroying all of them. Oh. Okay, so that was not malicious intent, according to James Comey. And so what Obama says is, maybe we had scandals. I mean, maybe we did some scandalous stuff, but we never meant to do scandalous stuff. Absolute hogwash, absolute nonsense. His administration was certainly not scandal-free. Benghazi was a major scandal, despite what Democrats would say. Hey, this was a scandal in which the State Department repeatedly refused requests by Ambassador Chris Stevens for additional security in Benghazi. No troops were forthcoming in the middle of a 17-hour attack, in the middle of a huge attack in Benghazi, or 13-hour attack in Benghazi. Okay, nothing came. And then there was a cover-up by the Obama administration claiming it had nothing to do with lack of security or Libyan policy in the first place. Instead, what it really had to do with was a video made by some anonymous YouTube guy nobody had ever heard of. Oh. So that was a scandal. There's Fast and Furious, in which the Obama administration greenlit the movement of killing weapons, as they would say, down to Mexican drug cartels, which were then used in the murder of U.S. border agent Brian Terry. Oh. You remember that the Obama administration was involved in the IRS scandal, in which Obama's IRS suspiciously started targeting only conservative 501c3 groups. And they claim, no, we never would do that. Of course, that's exactly what happened. Oh. The Obama administration was repeatedly involved in deep levels of corruption. No one was prosecuted because the DOJ was run by Barack Obama's wingman, Eric Holder. But here is the real point. Barack Obama thinks that he was never involved in a scandal because he was not, according to the media. According to the media, he was never involved in a scandal. And this has been a repeat point of contention for folks on the right. A lot of people on the left don't understand why so many folks on the right are so upset all the time about the media. Why are we so upset about the media? Aren't the media just trying to tell the truth? Don't the media have a job to do? Here's the problem. Whenever a Democrat gets involved in a scandal, the coverage is less blanket, shall we say, than the coverage of a Republican when a Republican is involved in a similar scandal. Right? You still, do you even remember the name of that New York attorney general who had to resign because he was calling girlfriends his slaves and then sexually abusing them? Do you remember that guy? Allegedly sexually abusing them? Remember that guy? His name was Eric Schneiderman. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. And it lasted for 5 hours, right? I mean, that sucker was over immediately. Right? That was over as fast as it began. Oh. But think of Republicans for whom this has happened. The David Vitter scandal went on for a long time. That was a consensual affair with a call girl. And that went on for a lot longer. The Donald Trump scandals obviously have continued for a lot longer. Now, you may say, well, what about Republicans who resigned? Did the scandals continue for them? The answer is yes, the scandals does continue for Republicans who resigned from office. Bob Packwood, obviously, is still synonymous with scandal. So, I mean, you can go all the way back with this. And the media have guarded Democrats with their pens for years. Okay, here's the latest story about this. Okay, and it's not played it's not played this way for the New York Post, by the New York Post, but this is obviously the hidden story here. In May 1961, an elderly woman in Paris heard a knock at the door of her 6-story walk-up apartment. It was the only the most powerful man in the world. The president of the United States was going door to door hoping to find the call girl he had discreetly arranged to meet. John F. Kennedy, it turned out, used a fake excuse about a doctor's visit to attend a long-arranged dalliance while in Paris for a crucial summit, only to wind up in the wrong building, knocking on the doors of random Parisians who were left with the surprise of their lives. Oh. So Kennedy wanted to hook up with a French actress who looked like Jackie Kennedy, and apparently that didn't work, so instead he decided to go to a whore. Now, here is the real question. That was 1961. It is now 2018. It took 57 years for this to hit the press. 57 years for that to hit the press. Do you really think the press weren't there in Paris at a meeting with Charles de Gaulle and Nikita Khrushchev Do you think the press really weren't around for any of this? Do you think the press really didn't know about it? The press knew about everything. They knew about everything that was going on with JFK. Okay, the plan was apparently for Malraux, this French culture minister, to play tour guide to the First Lady while the president visited French historical sites, but then Kennedy begged off, claiming a flare-up of his bad back and saying he needed to visit a French pain specialist, but instead he had brought his Dr. Feelgood, Max Jacobson, for cover, and they headed off to find his mystery lover, only to wind up at the wrong apartment. So, again, is it possible the press didn't know about this? Unlikely. Because JFK did this kind of crap all the time. The Kennedys did this kind of stuff all the time. The Camelot image the press plastered across the front pages, it was all a lie. Oh. Now, you might say that these lies were done for the sake of the American public. They did this with Hollywood stars at the time. They did it with all presidents at the time, all politicians at the time. But that is clearly not true, because even today, the press treat JFK with this sort of glamour and sophistication. JFK was a significantly worse person in many ways than Bill Clinton. Okay, and Bill Clinton is nobody's idea of a saint. And yet JFK is treated as this wonderful guy, right? Nobody talks about chipping Kennedy off the Kennedy Center. Nobody talks about taking that chisel and just chipping that right off the Kennedy Center. They talk about removing Woodrow Wilson's name from the Woodrow Wilson School over at Princeton. But they will never talk about removing JFK's name, even though Kennedy was indeed the worst kind of sexual scumbag. None of that matters, right? That's totally fine, because Kennedy was Kennedy. And then you wonder why people on the right don't respect the press. You wonder why people on the right have no respect for how it is that the press go about their business. It's because